Nonprofit and philanthropic leaders devote their lives to the service of others, but sometimes they need a little help. Kristine Michie has been deep in the work and the play of helping changemakers grow their impact for decades. So whether you're ladling soup at a local shelter or attending a UN peace conference, you need to find the balance between the heavy work and a light touch so you don't burn out. And Kristine believes play is at the center of that. Welcome to the PlayFull Podcast, bringing fun to the serious work of changing the world.
Everyone, welcome. Welcome back to the PlayFull Podcast. We are once again bringing fun to the serious work of changing the world. And all loyal listeners know that we record with different series and topics and themes. And then we have the great pleasure of dropping in, and this will be one of those, occasional conversations with folks who are engaged in play full time. And I'll say play with purpose. And today's guests, Harry, Nathan Gottlieb, and Michelle Sobel, are two of those. And they are currently president and founder of Unify America, which I'm going to say hi, and then I'm going to read everybody a little blurb about Unify America.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. So glad you guys are here. So there's lots of different, descriptions of and et cetera of Unify America, but I love this one here. We leverage technology and game design to reduce political polarization and teach civic and problem-solving skills so Americans can work together and reach our shared goals and harness the power of viewpoint diversity to identify better solutions. Whoosh. And I
think we need to throw that through ChatGPT and tighten it up a little bit.
Tighten it up. Then you've got, what do you like better? We create experiences that reduce political polarization, teach critical civic skills, and give people across the country a chance to make their voices heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said that too.
I didn't realize that this podcast was going to be wordsmithing our various copy on our website. So send us the bill.
No, I love all these words. And I got to tell you, I participated. I signed up for one of the Unity challenges and was hooked up with a college student in Florida. And we had an hour-long plus conversation. So thanks for that. But I'm jumping ahead, skipping ahead. So folks, Harry and Michelle both have diverse experiences in entertainment, healthcare, TV, kind of you name it. I was saying from healthcare to Hollywood. And in particular, Harry founded a game, Jackbox Games, and you don't know Jack, right? That was the original game. My 20-somethings, when I told them I was going to be talking to you today, were like, oh my God, I can't believe you're talking to the guy that started Jackbox. I didn't know about it until I met the two of you and then talked to them about it and have since checked it out, and totally fun. So Harry, how did you go from being a game designer to a democracy protector and advocate?
Well, there's a relationship actually, because in a way the way that we operate, the way that we work together as a government of the people, you can look at it through the lens of games, and the way that we have been playing the game is a game where you have two sides that are trying to beat each other. If you are trying to solve problems, it's not a great game. It's not a great way to structure. If the goal is problem solving, two teams competing for dominance, not a great game structure. But we have in the United States something that was bequeathed to us by our founders, this extraordinary idea of a jury of your peers in a court of law that determines guilt or innocence. And I served on a jury. It was an incredible experience. For those of you jury duty, I'm telling you, go do it. And one of the things that you'll find if you go do it is that it's a game where everybody either wins together or loses together. And the way you lose is you have a hung jury. Not everybody comes to a consensus. And nobody wants that. It's a huge waste of time for everybody. Everybody loses. But if you come to a consensus, a legitimate consensus, where people really feel like justice is served, everybody wins, right? Obviously the person who is guilty doesn't win, but that's the way it's supposed to be. But I was so struck by what if we tried to solve problems in the United States by playing the game, which is in the reality, which is like we actually win together or we lose together. So that changes the game. So if you're going to problem solve, you don't have two teams competing against each other. You have one team that says we have a common problem that we're trying to solve. We're trying to solve for homelessness. We're trying to solve for lack of childcare. We're trying to solve for education. We're trying to solve for climate, whatever. And then look at lots of different possible solutions and, like a jury, deliberate the pros and cons of those different solutions until you come to a shared set of solutions. That is the way that we can start solving our problems in the United States. And so it is like it's changing the game. It's literally changing the game.
Okay. This is one of those moments where like, well, that seems so obvious. And yet, I don't know if you could see my facial expression. I was like, oh my God, I think you unlocked it. I mean, it's so obvious, and yet we're not approaching it that way. Thank you for that. I love, and I've talked to some other game designers. We've had some other folks, I think, Peter Williamson, he's been on. So other folks kind of in this space between games and civic action, civic engagement. Love it. Michelle, tell us about, I know you two have way back history from the beginning of the Jack series, and then you've done different things and come back together at Unify America. Tell me about your path back here and how it feels to be back in the game business with Harry working on America.
Yeah, I mean, so listeners, Harry Gottlieb and I are 110 years old. And we knew each other back in college. And I like telling the story about how Harry and I really met. And I just told the story yesterday, but I think it's a really apt metaphor for our professional and friendship over these years. We were at Brown together in the 1900s. And we met before this, but we walked into the gymnasium on the day of activity day, when you walk around and you see what kind of activities you want to do. And Harry's like, oh, let's walk around together. So we did. And he stopped at the skydiving club table and he said, should we do this? And 19-year-old me said, yes. And so the very first thing we've ever did sort of together was jump out of an airplane. And I feel like that's the thing. Like we've continued to do that together. I started my career in Hollywood. I was a film editor, and then actually it was in New York. And then Harry called me one day and said, what are you doing this summer? I'm starting a company. At the time, it was called Learn Television. It then became Jellyvision, and that was the summer that we built and launched You Don't Know Jack. I gave up my career in Hollywood because it was so much fun. We had a whole bunch of folks from Second City and comedy writers and improv folks, and it was just a laugh an hour. And we were making this really cool thing. Harry willed that into existence with our partners actually in California, the people who made the flying toaster screensavers, Berkeley Systems. And that's how I know. So that's how it started. I'm not going to go through every detail of this whole thing. I had a 25-year separation from Harry where I went ahead and created patient-facing technology. That's another conversation. But in 2019, zip ahead, Harry said, I'm really concerned about how divided our country is, and I think there's a better system, a way that we can actually move forward. What are you up to? And I said, well, he's like, I think I wanted to call it like Imagine America or Unify America. And I was really, frankly, kind of dark and cynical and not feeling very playful about America. And I said, well, good luck with that, Harry. I'll give you a couple minutes of my time to help you find a CRM. But I really didn't feel very hopeful. What I needed and what I continue to need is Harry's optimism. And it was Harry's optimism that was, kind of is a fuel for this rocket that we're on right now. But the pandemic hit at that moment, 2020. And we realized that the way that we're talking to each other right now was how we were all learning how to live and work. And it's kind of how we decided to bring people together across major lines of difference. So it was a happy accident for Unify America, and I'm still here, and many years later, and we have achieved so much in the time that we have started on this journey, and we can talk a little bit about that. But yeah, I tell the story all the time, and I keep telling it different ways, but that's the basic thrust of it.
And Kristine, you should know, it was like 20 years before Michelle's mother forgave me for getting Michelle to jump out of an airplane. When she told them, like when we were back in college and Michelle called her mother and said, I jumped out of this airplane with this guy, Harry Gottlieb. She's like, you are never to talk to that man again.
She
Well,
loves him.
I
Loves
just
him.
I just got to wonder if your Venn diagram includes anyone else for the first thing they did together was jump out of a plane, not having met on the plane, but having met previously and made that plan to do that together and doing that together. What a great origin story of your friendship. Now, Michelle, you referenced, and I don't know if this was actual or just in your memory, a theme or a concept, but the word imagination, maybe imagine America, right? As you might imagine, on the podcast, we talk a lot about imagination. If you think I'm talking, to pretty much full-time change makers, people, either philanthropists or social sector leaders, CEOs and things like that of nonprofit organizations, foundations, et cetera. If they couldn't imagine a better world, they would probably have picked a different line of work. But if you can imagine a better world, you may just find yourself devoting your life to that each day. And the playfulness comes in because guess what? A lot of days it doesn't feel like it's changed at all. Some days it feels like lately it might be going backwards. Talk to me about infusing in each other, both, as you referenced, Michelle, Harry's optimism and keeping the imaginative spirit going. And Harry, how important is imagination to game design? I suspect it may be primary. Talk about that if you would.
I mean, to game design? Yeah, for
Well,
sure.
and then leading into this game design with this purpose of trying to make America everything it can be.
Yeah, I mean, you really kind of can't overstate the importance of imagination, especially when you are trying to, as you were saying, imagine a better world. I mean, for sure, it's a huge. I am literally like my father was like in his DNA. He was like a problem solver, and he taught me like there was no problem that couldn't be solved. I mean, he like this crazy stuff that he's like, but what if we, international affairs? He's like, but what if we did this?
Yeah.
Like as if he was in a position to actually like fix the world. But that seeped into me, and it is like actually problem solving I find to be like really, really joyful. Like the idea of like, okay, there's this problem, but like, what if we try this? What if we try that? And of course, doing it with other people, like having the benefit of collaborating with other people and bouncing off each other. And of course, this is one of the hallmarks of my relationship with Michelle is like there's a lot of bouncing off each other. We have different strengths, and those different strengths and different perspectives almost invariably lead to wiser decisions. Okay, now let me blow that up. You take right now Americans who currently our differences are being used to divide us, right? We have different perspectives. Some people like small government, and people like I'm worried about marginalized communities or whatever it is. And like those differences are being used to divide us. But if you are trying to solve problems, you don't want people sitting around the table who've all got the same perspective. You want people sitting around the table who have different perspectives, who see the world differently, who have different stories to bring to bear, different arguments to be made. And then you want a process by which people can really listen to each other respectfully, bring in solid information, and deliberate in order to figure out what is the best path forward. So what is now being used to divide us in the right context where we have there's a process called the Civic Assembly, where you bring people together to solve public problems, regular people. And what comes out of that is collective wisdom.
And going back to the beautiful jury duty analogy, I haven't ever in all my decades gotten picked. And I go when I'm called, and I go and I'm just like, can't wait to get picked. And I appreciate you kind of shouting out. And I love that as a metaphor for this. The shared, I mean, just think about if these assemblies like you're speaking of, if we had this jury of our peers, right? So peers. But we know from what we've seen, at least on TV, if you haven't been on a jury, that the voir dire, right, when they're trying to pick the jurists, they're looking for variety, right? They're looking for a variety of people and perspectives. Each may be different. Each side may be looking for a different bit of variety. But you hope that when you get into that room, you look around the table and see, I mean, I guess I would feel that way, right?
You do.
Yeah.
You definitely do. You're like, wow. these are not the people that I hang out with normally. It is a real, it's fascinating and fabulous. It's just a really extraordinary experience to sit in there with people who really are not the kind of people you would normally run into. And then you discover, I mean, at least certainly my experience was, everybody was in that room and they were really trying to do a good job, because they knew that the people who the case that we had just heard, those people have been waiting 2 years for their day in court. And I think there was a sense in the room, which I probably helped generate. I mean, I managed to get myself elected foreman, but that like, what if it was us? What if it was us out there? We would want the people in here to take the process seriously. And I will say, when you give American citizens real responsibility, real agency, whether it's on a jury or it's on a civic assembly, that's sort of a problem-solving jury, people they're so elevated by the experience of having real agency in self-government, and people do take it seriously, and they're bringing their experience to bear, their knowledge to bear. They're really listening to each other. They want to find the right way forward. And when you compare that to the insanity that happens in our legislatures, especially our national legislature, Congress, because the system and the game is set up in such a way to create animosity instead of to set up a structure for problem solving. And I want to say something about the program Michelle runs, which is our Civic Gym. We put students together from across the country who are afraid of talking to each other because they know that they're getting paired with somebody who's different from them, different walk of life, votes differently. And they are shocked by not only how much they like each other, but how much they agree and how easily they can disagree with each other respectfully. I'm telling you, it's in us. It is in us Americans to be able to collaborate to solve our problems together. We just need to change the game.
Yeah. And we need practice, right? We need practice like any game. You want to practice, right? So Michelle, if you would, tell us a little bit about how you all went from the idea of this to kind of the productizing and the actualizing implementation, all the way up to, as Harry just is talking about, Civic Gym. How did you decide what to do first?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, and I'm so glad that you have taken the Unify Challenge, so you've lived it and experienced it, Kristine. It's really great, and I encourage everybody listening to come to Unify America.
Grown-ups can do it too.
We have open challenges for the public, and oftentimes you will be paired with a college student because they sometimes miss their opportunity to take sessions during their time. But we discovered, as I said, during COVID, that we needed to bring people together virtually. And we very quickly, and for your listeners who are business people, we found a product market fit in higher ed. Faculty are looking for experiential learning opportunities, and we understood that we needed to make this dead easy for faculty because they don't have time to mess around with a lot of preparation and administrative tasks. So we are serving higher ed. And when I say higher ed, we work primarily with community colleges that don't typically have these kind of resources or access to these kind of resources, HBCUs, faith-based institutions, public four-year, private, liberal arts, technical colleges, military academies. So we are looking for a diverse group of students. There are many non-traditional students. We have students in their 50s and 60s. We have students who are parents. We have students who have jobs. So think of college student. Don't think of like the sweatshirt and the football and the frat party. These are people. These are working people who are looking for degrees. And the number one field of study of students in our population right now are nurses and STEM students and business students. We started out with poli-sci. We thought that was where it was. And it's true, government students, I mean, that's the sort of thing that makes sense theoretically. But now we have campus-wide immersion, where first-year seminars, gen ed courses, or where students access this experience. And we wanted to not just be a one and done. So the Unify Challenge is the first experience in the Civic Gym, where you build your civic muscles, as you said.
The practice, yep.
You have that 1 hour experience. Sometimes students stay on longer. We don't turn off the lights, just like Motel 6. So it just goes on and on. People sometimes talk for 3 hours because, as Harry said, they start out keyed up with nerves. And then they go, oh, we have so much in common. I'm really interested in this conversation. What is it like to live in Idaho? What is it like to live in New York City? I mean, they're paired across geographies. We don't pair students from same, we avoid pairing students from the same school. Why? We really want students to not self-censor because of social risk. So if you're in a situation where you're talking to somebody you will probably never meet again, you are free to express yourself. And that's what we want. We want students to feel free to express themselves and learn how to listen to a new perspective, share their own perspective, and be able to disagree better and be able to find common ground where they are shocked they did. So we developed a second program. I'm just going to describe it quickly. So 6 weeks later, so you're a professor of, aviation, and you decide to offer the Civic gym to all your students because you want to make sure that your future flight crews can handle all kinds of people. That's the case at the University of North Dakota right now. So students will come and take the Unify Challenge at the end of September. We offer multiple sessions. It's just like a movie times. And then 6 weeks later, they choose to do the deep dive. There are 4 topics students choose from. One is gun ownership and gun violence. One is social media and mental health, probably the most popular. One is about voting and representation. And the last one is about free speech and hate speech. And it is quite poignant because the scenario that students are grappling with in that program is about a controversial speaker who comes to campus. We don't make it about we kind of we would decide to go one step removed from reality. And so we created a fake university called Deep Sea University. And the controversial podcaster is a dolphin who has terrible things to say about clams. And students really kind of love that metaphor. Talk about play, right? It allows them to access and step into that really difficult conversation by talking about dolphins and clams. So they go with it. Anyway, so those 2 programs make up the Civic Gym. And we are finding that students, 75%, would like to do it again with another partner. When do students want to do their homework again? I don't know. And then they do want to stay in touch. We haven't quite figured out how to handle that, but we like the idea of engaging in these conversations and then having some kind of sustained conversation going on beyond college.
Love it. I've been thinking about the guy that I got paired with, who was a college student in Florida, and I'm as old as his parents or older, and I'm not sure what he thought when that lady came on. That was me, and it was just First of all, another cool thing about it, you guys, is that we were learning how to do the game together. So we were like talking about the prompt, and they were like, should we push next yet? Are we ready? Have we finished? So we both had to figure out how to use the tool, and it wasn't complicated, but there were a few moments we were checking with each other. So we were collaborating, Harry, around a common thing, which was like, let's make sure we're doing this right. And then we extended twice, and I had thought the platform would kick us off. And so I had set an appointment. I had a Zoom meeting, right, that was starting at the top of the hour. So I could tell we weren't done. And I texted my person I was supposed to meet with, and I told my buddy on the challenge, on the gym, that I was going to push my meeting. So then 15 more minutes passed, and I'm like, I do have to go now. And I've thought about him since. I wonder how he's doing, right? And he shared about, he was a Cuban immigrant. He'd come to the US when he was very young, living in Florida. And so, I also probably, when he gave me his basic bio, I saw myself have a bunch of ideas. Oh, I know about this guy, right? I know, I set a little hell in my mind that I had a profile that I understood what he would be like, which was shattered, right? As we went through the conversation. And he might have had something when he saw me come on the screen, what he thought, he would know what I was about. And we both got to have the mutual surprise and delight of getting to know each other. So I loved the experience, and I've told a lot of people about it, and definitely will do it again. And it prompted me too to think about, am I talking to my neighbor across the street, right? Can I have a conversation like I had with him, with my neighbors across the street? And that's kind of my own challenge, to take that where there's a little more social risk, being neighbors. But I'm feeling more confident now than I did before he and I talked.
I love that. I absolutely love everything you just said. And it's so interesting that you talked about having a profile about the person you're going to meet. Sometimes students are a little disappointed that they don't have more conflict. And it's an interesting phenomenon because we're like, as Harry said in the beginning, we have so much more in common than we realize. And what happens though is, on a personal level, we like the idea of people getting complicated for one another.
Mm.
I think that kind of nuance and subtlety, and so we don't live in this world of fear based on stereotypes, which the conflict entrepreneurs love to use as one of their favorite tools.
Yeah. Harry, you posted this week, this will air a few weeks later, but you had posted on LinkedIn, I saw something about how we all have some George Washington like DNA in our system or something like that. To get at the point about this kind of our shared ancestry broadly, tell what kind of reaction did you get to that? And what, in my recounting it, what am I missing, or what did I get right about the point you were making?
Well, it's not so much that we had actually George Washington's DNA, but it is a fact that, which is like a mind-blowing fact, that for most of us, we have had one or more molecules of water come in and pass through our body that also passed through the body of George Washington and everyone else who's ever lived on Earth. There's only so much water in the world. I mean, it sounds crazy,
Yeah.
but there's so.
Yes.
I mean, and we're 60% water. It's constantly cycling in and out, and it's not just water. It's also calcium and hydrogen and oxygen and nitrogen and like all these other chemicals. Like we just borrow them for a while, and they come in and out. And
Yes,
so
well, we're here.
right. So the point is, if you had to represent this mathematically, you equals us. Like we are all sharing the same substances, and we're really just like we're part of something larger. And the point that I was making is that whether you're looking through the lens of religion, and most religions have this idea of like an overall oneness that we are a part of, we're part of something larger. And then you look at this science of like we're all literally part of the same thing. Our bodies are literally made of the same stuff that we're passing around to each other. And then you look at the American ideal of e pluribus unum, from many one, and they're all the same idea.
Yeah.
They're all the same idea. Like we are many, there are different parts of us, but more importantly, we are one. And the metaphor that I talked about is like, I mean, you've got a left eyeball, and you've got a right hand, and you've got a left shoulder, and you've got a spleen, and you've got, a femur. And those are all differentiated and important parts of you. But the greater reality is all of you, is the whole you. And we have to think about ourselves. And this is what our founders hoped for, like George Washington in particular, hoped for us to think of ourselves as a union, as a group that is together, and that is the main thing we need to do. And to ward off, I was literally just last night reading Washington's farewell address, where he warns there are people who are going to try to divide you by appealing to party, appealing to regional loyalty, and you should steer clear of that.
Yes.
Remember, like your liberty and your happiness are bound up in our ability to think of ourselves and act as a union.
Yeah.
And so, and that is in our American DNA.
Yeah.
that we all share. So now we just need to change the game, change the systems and our culture in order to start living.
Fantastic. I've been noticing with the change makers I've been talking to on the podcast, there's a moment right now around like, you can't take our joy. Like we will not give that up. And I'm feeling here in this as well, like you cannot take our unity. You cannot take that intrinsic thing that we know to be true, that American DNA thing that you just referenced, that phrasing. We will insist, we need to insist on that. I'm going to ask you, Michelle, about intellectual humility, which is something you referenced that is one of the things that is a benefit or consequence of participating in Civic Gym. What do you mean by that phrase?
Do you have the ability to see when you are wrong? Right? The righteousness is an obstacle to unification, right? So I have to say, I wonder if I got that wrong. And so there's not, we just did, we did a large multi-center study funded by the Institute for Humane Studies at George Mason. And they're very interested to see the effect of the programs on affective polarization, of course, which I want to talk about. It's very interesting with Gen Z. Intellectual humility. Did this process make you question your own views? And did it allow you to open up to listen to say, Kristine might be right. I haven't thought about that. Or, you have a really good reason for disagreeing with me. That's intellectual humility. And I think it's important not just for, being a successful student, but also being a successful citizen and successful in the workplace, right? So workplace readiness is important around civic skills, right? How am I going to work with people in a complex plural environment? And we're also looking at workplace readiness in terms of, can I be an environment that has a lot of people who think differently than me? Can I function? Can I be a productive member of this team? So that's intellectual humility. Can I talk a little bit about affective polarization? Because we're discovering something really interesting.
Yes, and I'm just going to let you both know, myself know, and the audience, we're going to have ice cream next. So this point, and then it's like, you're going on before lunch. So
okay, so all the political scientists will measure how much you feel about the in-group and the out-group, and they use the construct of Democrat and Republican. That has not applied very well to this group of mostly 20-somethings and college students. Why? Most do not identify with a political party. We have this empirical data and we can share it. And we also have discovered, which is sort of shocking to all of us, that many just choose not to vote. And I think there is a level of disengagement, maybe because of the dysfunction that Harry is describing and the dysfunction we all live with, the sort of opting out. And so I think some of those standard political temperature questions that we ask around affective polarization don't apply as neatly to this generation.
Yeah. The guy I was talking to, my buddy in Florida, he had never voted. He was 21. And it was interesting because he had informed and interesting things to say about every prompt. So it wasn't like he was new to this whole, he cared about the things and was talking about. And I didn't, it was not my role to say, I can't believe you haven't voted. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. But to your point exactly. So I would suspect that his involvement in the gym and maybe our conversation might make him more predisposed now next time, he's thinking about it, and perhaps he's going to start thinking about it, coming into an election year next year. He didn't sound like somebody who had never voted. I guess I'll say it that way, but he told me he had not, which was interesting.
That's not an anomaly.
Yeah. Let's go get our ice cream. Everybody step aside to the freezers, and I've got mine in a little cooler next to me here. So folks, if you're new to the PlayFull Podcast, I want to let you know that we have an ice cream sponsor. They have been by our side for the last 2 years of our 2.5 years in business. And they are a social enterprise, employee-owned ice cream company based in Baltimore, Maryland. They ship nationwide, as is demonstrated by us here today having ice cream in cities around the country here on this podcast. Their name, Taharka Brothers, Taharka, Taharka Brothers. And I think you're going to find this now because Harry and Michelle will, it's going to be unanimous, I suspect, when they take a bite. This is often stated by the folks having the ice cream, it's the best ice cream they've ever had. So it's not just awesome. It's not just ice cream. It's not just cool that they deliver it. Okay. So
wait, I got to take a picture of that.
Yeah. Do that. So we're taking a picture of our cartons, and we chose 3 different flavors. Folks, when you order nationwide delivery, they send you 6 pints. A, just because that's awesome, and B, listen to this, you guys. They told me it's because the pints keep each other cold, which I think makes me just smile thinking about them helping each other out. All right.
That's adorable.
Michelle, what did you choose?
Joe Gans, Cup of Joe, coffee ice cream.
Yes, and he is a boxer from Baltimore, so that's a tribute to him. And it's coffee ice cream. It has some sort of chunks or something, right?
It does. Must be chocolate or maybe coffee beans.
So good. Coffee beans. Oh yeah, chocolate covered espresso beans, I think. In that one. Okay, Harry, what did you choose?
Keep your head up.
Tupac,
Keep
right?
keep your head up.
Who's another Baltimore
I think so.
favorite.
Blackberry crumble layered throughout vanilla ice cream.
As you guys can imagine, I've had them all, so I know how good both those are. And I'm having caramel crunch. Listen to this: salted caramel ice cream with chocolate covered honeycomb toffee.
Are we allowed to eat this entire pint?
Because it's only 960 calories per pint.
And it's like, I mean,
only.
It's lunchtime.
Often during the podcast, I don't know about you, but my spoon will hit the bottom of the carton, and then I'm like, well, I guess I'm gonna have the whole thing.
You're so enabling.
Oh, yeah, it's true. Either of you want to tell about the experience of it showing up?
The box is pink, I think, right?
It's hot pink, yep.
Big pink box. Excellent packaging. Mm-hmm. Got a big box of dry ice that you can't actually get to so that you don't
burn your fingers.
Mm-hmm. And there are all these pints. And I'm looking at that thinking, how many miles do I need to bike to compensate
I would say
for all this deliciousness that's going to be happening?
Yeah, my Peloton rides on the day of ice cream podcast recordings, it goes up. And did either of you have to kind of fend off family members or colleagues to kind of keep off the ice cream until the podcast? Or did you share?
No one even knows it's in there.
Now they know.
We're both empty nesters.
Empty nesters.
Perfect.
So there's like a level of safety with food that you don't want other people eating.
I've had some guests tell me that they told their kids it's professional ice cream so that they wouldn't eat it. All right. That's now, when we're eating ice cream, as we are, I want to ask, what's the scoop on how you came to care? So I'm going to start with you, Harry. What early memory do you have of kind of realizing the world was bigger than just you, your family, and maybe the people on your block, like that there was a bigger world out there and you wanted to play a role, felt a responsibility maybe even to play a role in making it better?
The answer about like the larger world was in college, but I was already trying to make the world better when I was in high school, within the high school. My freshman year in high school, this is like, what year was that, Michelle? 1979?
1980, yeah, 79.
Yeah, something like 79, 80. There was like a day that was known as Freshman Initiation Day. And kids, mostly sophomores, were just super cruel to freshmen. I mean, some kids would get beat up. Other kids, they just have like eggs thrown at them, shampoo poured down their pants.
It wasn't like good, clean fun.
No. This is like back in the day. This was before like, hey, kids are bullying each other. Like this is like a decade plus before anybody was like talking about that. And I think it had gone on for quite a long time. I mean, I knew about it when I was in junior high school, and it was like this day that everybody was afraid. And I wasn't directly affected, but I saw some stuff and I'm like, that's so dumb. And so fast forward, I'm a senior and I am student council president. And I walk into the office of the assistant principal for student activities. And I'm like, his name is Mr. Smith, David Smith. I'm like, Mr. Smith, I got this idea. I want to do this year. I want to get rid of Freshman Initiation Day. And he's like, how are you going to do that? I'm like, we're going to have an official Freshman Initiation Day. We're going to like go right on top of it. Except what we're going to do is we're going to have this totally elaborate event. And so the way the event worked was we had all the kind of normal kids, seniors who participate in everything, and they were part of like one committee. And then I, with my vice president, whose name was Sheila Hoshaw, we handpicked the kind of leaders of all of the little groups.
Yep.
I mean, like with like the debate club,
Yep.
the
The
soccer
jocks.
team,
Yep.
but like also like the burnouts, like, like
Yep.
everybody, like
Yep.
the whole group. And had the principal of the school send a letter home to them, inviting them to participate.
Oh,
And sort of like setting it up as an
brilliant.
honor. I mean, I wrote the letter, the principal signed it. We sent out like, I don't know, 50 of these things. And then there was a rehearsal, and it was an event that was going to happen in the auditorium. This is a big suburban school, like 2,000 kids. So it's a big auditorium. And when the freshmen were marched in by these seniors, not having any idea what was going to happen, but knowing this is freshman initiation day, smoke is coming off the stage. There's a giant podium. And in the middle of the podium, the school, my high school is called Glenbrook South, GBS, Glenbrook South. But I knew, like every kid wants to really be in college. And so instead of saying GBS, it said Gamma, Beta, Sigma, like the Greek letters. And like literally like 3 foot tall Greek letters glowing. I mean, I got the whole stage crew. They all like built this thing.
Wow.
And then I had representatives, the superintendent and the captain of the football team and the super popular, forensics professor. Everybody, so all these people were up there, and they read this mythology. So we were the Titans, and our arch enemy were the Spartans, and so it was telling the story of the Titans and the Spartans and the mythology that you are now entering into. And then there's a certain point where the kids are marched up on stage, and they all get a little pin, a pledge pin, Gamma, Beta, Sigma.
Oh my God, I love
That's
it.
the seniors are putting it on, and then there's like raucous music and like insanity. And all the seniors who were selected for this got this sweatshirt that only they got that said Gamma, Beta, Sigma on it. And then the woman who was kind of like the paraprofessional in our school, who was in charge of swag, she wanted to sell it to everybody. I'm like, oh, wait a second. For the next 2 months, you can only sell it to seniors. Only seniors can get it.
Great.
And then from 2 more months, only juniors. Seniors and juniors.
Brilliant.
And so only at the very end of the year could a freshman get their hands on this.
Yeah.
Now,
Are there any on eBay?
there might be. Anyway, fast forward, and I leave, and I know this was going on for a couple of years, but literally, I think it was 24 years later, we have a new employee at Jellyvision, one of the 2 for-profit companies that I started. And she tells me that in high school, she graduated from Glenbrook South, which was 4 years earlier. She'd just come out of college. And I said to her, I'm like, does the term Gamma, Beta, Sigma mean anything to you? She's like, oh my God, of course, I've got the sweatshirt at home. I'm like, did you do an initiation assembly? She's like, oh yeah, of course, I did the initiation assembly.
Harry.
Right. And so I call up the high school, and I'm like, hey, you don't know who I am. But they're like, wait, we do know who you are. You're Harry Gottlieb? Like there were a few teachers who still remembered me, like not many. And so like that year, I went to the school, and I got to watch this assembly, which had changed. But I would say like 60% of it was the original script.
Oh my God. Wow.
And
So
it was amazing.
So I'm hearing so many themes here. First of all, joy, play. But first, I heard imagination, and I heard the vision that this thing, just because it's always been this way, doesn't have to keep being this way. And the prompt for you was harm was being caused. So it wasn't just like, inertia for this thing that keep happening, but you saw and it was harmful, and you had the agency and the imagination, and you believed that you could affect, and decades later, that thing you changed. And okay, so, and of course you also designed it, right? There was gaming components to it, and there was really cool plays on human nature about exclusivity and rolling things out, who can get it when. Love it all. Okay, Michelle, what story you got for us about an early?
I mean,
it's not a competition. Remember, it's not a competition.
I will say, just to go back to your question,
Yeah.
which is when did you start to care?
Mm-hmm.
Was that your question?
Yeah, your impact origin story.
So the one that came to mind, and I love that my mother is getting a second cameo in this podcast. My mother was single in the 70s. She was like the first person to get divorced on the planet. And 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 she was part of that first wave of feminism, like the bra burners.
Mhm.
And I think that I came up during Gloria Steinem and Marlo Thomas and Free to Be You and Me and Ms. Magazine
Yes,
and all
yes.
that. And I think that I remember my mother, I had a science fair. There was a science fair. And my mother said, well, social science is a science. I'm like, oh, it is. And so I actually wrote a survey for people to take about gender. I mean, this was like 1975. This was not when we were really talking about even the word gender. But she really helped me understand what it was to be like the Equal Rights Amendment was
Yeah.
happening. Of course,
Yeah.
it failed. But, all those things were really for me maybe my political awakening and understanding what it means to be female. Of course, I've always worked as a mother. And so that was kind of when I started to care. And to this day, I think that I have two daughters that are in their 20s. And, I'm thinking a lot about setting the example just this morning with my 24-year-old about management. She's going through a really funky management situation. And how do I help her help other women and look at other women in her organization and think about not competing?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you're asking me a personal question. I think that's really the first thing that came to my mind.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
my mother, the bra burner, was when I started to care.
I love it. And Harry, I just got to say, I noticed your ice cream is a little melted because you had to ask. I brought the ice cream out, then asked you a question. So if you want to go get another pint that's more frozen, you can be excused for that because it
Oh
just
my
melted
God,
ice cream breaks my heart. Okay.
Kristine, if I had a half of that, and that is, I'm so over my limit.
Okay.
We're going to have to take a nap.
I had a
Right.
guest bring just put hers in a mug and had a straw. She's like, I figured it would probably melt while you were talking, and she just drank it that way. All
Wow,
right, you
that's
guys,
good planner.
I know, good planning. We are gonna wrap this up, knowing that we're gonna continue to talk, and I want people through the show notes and the episode, check out all that you guys are doing. I want to ask a question, one about business model for Unify America. How reliant are you on philanthropy? Or I don't remember that I paid for anything. I don't think I did to participate. So I'm curious about that. So if one of you will take that question, and then the other, I'd love to have you talk about how risky, have you found any risk sort of aversion that folks might have about doing something playful around something that's so serious right now, about kind of like, the sense of, what's at stake, and do we dare be playful when so much is at stake? So who wants to talk business model and who wants to talk that?
I will take the business model. And if
Okay.
you want to take the second thing, because I would love for you to talk about Montrose, Harry, and about the lottery. Okay, so just quickly, so we are a 501c3. We are supported by philanthropy, and this is a combo platter of major gifts from high net worth individuals and also major foundations like the Arthur Vining Davis Foundations, who we really value. They really focus on civil discourse and higher ed. We are also introduced this year an earned revenue model. Right. So you, Kristine, do not pay to take the Unified Challenge, and anybody listening can take the Unified Challenge, and it is not does not cost anything. But we are now we've introduced subscription access for institutions, and so we are now we have a very affordable individual subscription price for individual educators as well as campus wide.
Great, great, fantastic. Okay, really glad to get that out there.
Yes.
Everyone can participate. You can sign up for the challenge, and then institutionally you can join and become part of this and make this tool available to your students, to your population.
Correct.
Excellent. Okay, Harry, how risky is it for change makers and people caring about the state of our democracy? How risky is it to approach this playfully, or is that the only way, or something in between?
I would say in general, it's risky to not approach it with a spirit, a positive spirit, that has an undercurrent of joy. People just like being angry. Like that's like the thing that everybody's wanting to get away from. You know, like aren't we just so tired of being angry? Um, and where has it gotten us? Like it's not like being angry and demonizing like the other side has solved our problems. Like we have not made, we have not in the last, let's call it 50 years, you can't name a single truly transformational, positive, durable change on any of the big problems that have been facing us, whether it's education, immigration, climate, poverty, crime. I mean, like,
Yeah.
you can't pick something. Healthcare, like we had Obamacare, that was like insurance reform. Like our healthcare system is still so expensive and so not delivering what other countries do for a bigger part of their population. Obviously, there's a lot of wonderful things about our healthcare system, but like nobody is being like, wow, our healthcare system's killing it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like there's been nothing. And so being angry and fighting each other, like I believe that there's going to be a day, and we are working towards that day, where our children's children are going to think back on this period of time and really like the centuries prior. And they're going to say to themselves, can you believe that people in the United States thought that they can solve their problems by fighting each other? Like, how insane is that?
Great.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, because in what other context do you say, whether it's in a family or it's in a church or it's in a company, be like, well, the way that we're going to solve this is structurally by fighting each other. Like like that's crazy.
Yeah.
But we're so used to it that we think it's the way it should be. So back to your question, so much of the work we're doing, like we're not in the business of trying to block bad things from happening. And like there are people for every administration, including this one certainly, that have been trying to block bad things from happening. Like if you're on the right, you've looked at like the Biden administration, Obama administration, back Clinton administration, and you were like seeing a whole bunch of stuff that needed to stop. Now, Bush administration, Trump administration, there's a bunch of stuff. And there are whenever people are in power, you have to have a force that is stopping them from using their power in a way they shouldn't. But that's not what we're doing. Like, well, you could say that that's playing defense. I guess in some way we're playing offense. We're not trying to block, we are trying to build. And so it's actually, even though I actually think even blocking should be done in a way that's joyful. Like if you want people to show up to protests, if it's all just anger, you're more likely to have more people show up.
You wear a chicken costume or a frog costume.
Right.
Yeah. But if you're building, like there's no reason not to bring the joy. So Michelle brought up the fact that we did our first civic assembly. Again, it's like a jury for problem solving. It's not 12 people, it's bigger. And the way that people get on the jury is they participate in a lottery. You sign up and say, wow, I would like to be a delegate to solve this particular problem. In Montrose, Colorado, the problem we were looking at was the shortage of childcare. And so you sign up and then you get to participate in this lottery to get randomly selected. It's a little more complicated than merely random. Any one person is random, but the assembly as a whole is actually demographically and politically representative of the community. So it's like it looked like a mini version of Montrose, Colorado, the group that we picked. The way that we did the lottery is we effectively ran a television show. And we had the high school band there, and we had balloons, and we had like little kids with their parents pulling balls out of bowls. We had rolling of the dice. Like it was and importantly, we wanted to make sure that the process for the lottery was totally transparent. So nobody would say, oh, they rigged the system. Like you look at this, you're like, okay, there's no way for them to rig the system. But we thought, well, as long as we're doing it, like, let's have a party. Like, let's have a good time.
Yeah.
And I think it only made people more enthusiastic about participating because it was joyful.
Yeah.
And there was a live cast, so people could watch it on TV.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Nicholas Ma is going to be on an upcoming episode. We've recorded it and haven't dropped it yet. That's Yo-Yo Ma's son, and he's a documentary filmmaker. And he made the Mr. Rogers movie, Will You Be My Neighbor? And he's got one now called Leap of Faith about interfaith dialogue. And he's going on an American revival tour where they're going out to he calls it communities where we've been invited. And they're going to go and they're going to set up these tents and they're going to have these parties to bring people together. And they're going to have a helper tent a la Mr. Rogers, because he always said, look for the helpers. And they're going to find ways for people to come in. It's like, how can I be helpful in this community, in this party setting? So it sounds very similar. There could be some cool synergy there. You guys, this has been amazing, and of course it would be fun to keep going. I'm going to give our listeners this chance to really reflect on this conversation, to get themselves some ice cream, take a listen, go into the show notes. We're going to put all kinds of links in there, whatever you guys want to send me, to make sure people can get great information to follow up. And I'm going to keep an eye on what you're doing. I'm just really excited to be a part of it.
Thank you for having us. You are a fantastic interviewer. It was a pleasure, and I love the ice cream, so thank you.
It's a great joy. Thank you both so much. Thanks everybody for being part of the PlayFull family.
Thanks, Kristen.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for listening to the PlayFull Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review it on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you know of a leader or organization that's doing good in the world and you'd love to help us help them amplify their message, I would love to have them on the show. Go to the show notes and click there, or go to impactfulinc.com/contact. And that's impactful with 2 L's, inc.com/contact. And let us know who you're thinking about. Can't wait to see you next time.